Hello and welcome to Pathways Through the Prairie. I am State Librarian Mary Soucie. Our podcast is an opportunity for me to talk with members of the North Dakota library community. And today I'm very excited to be joined by Misti Frink. Misti is the Learning Design and Innovation Coordinator for Bismarck Public Schools. I've known Misti close to 11 years now, and I always enjoy our conversations. So Misti, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, Misti, the state library's mission is providing pathways to information and innovation for North Dakota's libraries, state agencies, and government. So I always like to ask, what was your pathway into the library world?
So my pathway really started in education. So since I was 5 years old, I was passionate about being a teacher and wanted to be a teacher. And through a lot of personal experiences in college and with my first teaching jobs, became really devoted, I think, to at-risk and lower income students and families. And I taught in Alaska for a while, and I was in Oregon for a while before I came to North Dakota. And there's all kinds of struggles that occur when you're trying to motivate and engage students that are coming from diverse backgrounds or maybe experiencing trauma in different ways in the home. And I really found a passion for project-based learning, or authentic learning that we call it now, with really engaging kids in things that are meaningful to them and relevant to them. And a lot of the time that there's a lot of instructional technology that gets interwoven into those things. And so when I was sort of looking for what was next for me professionally, I was like, gosh, where could I work with technology and engaging with kids on topics that are meaningful to them? And the school library role was really kind of where those two worlds met, where kids get to research, find information that's meaningful to them, as well as kind of engage with relevant technologies. And as the more I explored those two worlds, the more that kind of pathway opened up for me, and kind of met those two passions. Because when you're being authentic and you're engaging kids and even students that maybe have other challenges at home, you turn from like being a teacher where you're trying to force kids to learn something to just providing access to materials and resources, and kids are digging into that on their own, and that engagement is so much higher. So that was kind of my roundabout way, I guess, to this position. So I was a school librarian for a while before I moved into kind of a leadership role within our district.
So where did your path start? You said you worked in Alaska and Oregon, and was there somewhere else?
And then in North Dakota. So
Okay.
I did some student teaching, and my college experience was in Portland, Oregon. And so in that experience, you get to the college that I went to, you were placed in a different school in a different grade level every semester, all 4 years. And then you do 2 kind of student teaching placements. So I really got a lot of experiences in different kinds of schools all over the Portland, Oregon area, with higher income, lower income. You really get all the different grade levels. You really get to find out kind of what your niche is, and where you like to be. And then I took a job up in Anchorage, Alaska, where I worked at an elementary school there. That's one of the top, most diverse, highest poverty schools in the nation. It's on their top 10 list, and just learned so much there about meeting the needs of different students from different backgrounds that speak different languages and different struggles and things that they were going through. And then I moved to North Dakota for an adventure. It was supposed to be a short-term adventure, and now I've been here 17 years. So I guess I don't know when you become a North Dakotan, but I think I'm getting pretty close on that. So.
Well, I've been here 11 years and I claim it. So
okay, all right, okay, good.
So
that's what we are now.
I don't know if I'm right claiming it, but I call myself a North Dakotan. But then when I go back to Illinois, I say I'm going home. So I have 2 homes.
Right.
I have two homes. But is there a particular? Do you have a favorite age group to work with, since you've worked with all levels?
Oh gosh, a lot of my experience was in an elementary classroom. So I taught first and second grade and fourth grade, mostly when I was a classroom teacher, but I've taught high school, summer school classes before, kind of earlier on in my career, and my son is currently a middle schooler, so I'm finding a new passion for that in between little age there too. So I think I probably have the most training in elementary, but I really feel comfortable working with all kinds of students. And now I really work with a lot of adults, a lot of teachers as well. So you hit the gamut in there, but the little ones are probably where I have most experience.
I love middle school age. A lot of people shy away from it, but middle schoolers are just coming into their own as human beings. They're starting to get ideas on their own and not just parroting what they've learned from mom and dad, and starting to really branch out and explore things on their own. And that personal enrichment is so important. At
Yeah.
that level, they're learning who they are and what they like to do. And so
It's
sometimes
yeah. And they're
the
funny.
parent of
Oh
a
my
middle
God, they're
schooler
so
can be
funny.
tough. You were saying?
Yeah, they're just funny. They're just hilarious. But yeah, being a parent of a middle schooler it has its challenges, but it is fun. It's fun to see them become little people with their own interests and things that they get exposed to things that I didn't grow up with, so I'm like learning things right along with them, but it's also an interesting time because like in Bismarck here, when they're in elementary schools, they're in kind of those same classes and those same kids, a lot smaller groups. And I feel like when they get to middle school and all of those elementary schools combined into one environment, they really can start to find things that they're passionate about. They might have been kind of the oddball at their elementary school, but when you get to middle school, you got, those kids are all together and now they feel like they're part of something bigger and they share interests with other people too. So that's been kind of fun to watch as well.
That's awesome. So what appeals to you about being in the library versus being in the classroom?
I think that I really enjoy collaborating with other people. And so when the roles that we had set up in my district initially were a lot of collaboration with classroom teachers. So I really enjoy designing instruction with other people and meeting students in diverse ways. I liked the fast pace of it for me. I am, not just doing the same thing every day, working with lots of different groups. You might be working with kindergartners 1 minute and a group of teachers the next minute, and building your collection all, within a 2 hours block of time. So I enjoy the fast pace of that. And just I think being able to meet so many people's needs too, is I think that there's so much that people don't understand, and we're still sharing with teachers and administrators about how their library supports them, that there's the sense of like you can come in and solve all kinds of problems for people, and that feels good too, to come in and be the solution or have the resource or something for somebody that needs it too. So yeah, there's a lot of great things around it. I think when I'm interviewing people for positions, for library positions, there's sometimes this perception that working in a library is easier than working in a classroom. And I would say that that's absolutely not the case. I think it's a different kind of work. And so being able to be flexible and, help this person and pull this resource, or collaborate with this person and work with this classroom is just a different kind of being busy. But it's definitely a tough job as well.
So you said that a lot of people would be surprised by all the things that a library can do. So what are the things that your libraries offer to your teachers or to your students that you think the average person would be surprised to learn about?
Well, I think a lot of our curricular resources they come through the school libraries that or part of our budgets that the probably average parent or community member may not know. So when we think about some of our online books or our resources that are supporting our instruction, our curriculum department may purchase the textbook part, but everything else that's really supplemental to that is coming from our libraries. A lot of our technology tools, like video creation tools or image generating tools, or all of those things, are coming through our library department, and we work very closely with our curriculum and our technology department to make sure everyone's got a little hand in resources like that. But a lot of that is managed through our departments, which I don't think is really well known. I also don't think that there's a general sense of the curricular and instructional support that librarians play. So school librarians in particular have to not only know your collection and the resources and the materials that you have, as well as best practice on research and instructional technology, they also have to be pretty intimate knowledge of all curriculum. So if you're in an elementary school, you know what's happening in K-5. So you know what the big standards are, what the big projects are in every single curricular area. And so they have a lot of knowledge of how things scaffold from one grade level to a next, or can connect curriculum materials in ways that maybe a classroom teacher who's just thinking about their one grade level isn't able to do. And so I think that's really a benefit of working and having our library media specialists in our building. I also think our library media specialists, besides the principals, maybe, is the only person in our school buildings that's professional responsibility is to work with every single student and every single staff member. So they're not just student focused and they're not just staff focused like an instructional coaches. They really have to bring those two things together. So when we have new initiatives or a new resource or anything like that, the librarians can work with students and be teaching students how to use that or that tool or that strategy, as well as working with adults on how to integrate and use that tool. So they're have really a lot of influence over some of the practices that are in a school.
So your title is Learning Design and Innovation Coordinator. Well, I mean, that sounds like a fun job. It also sounds like a humongous job. Can you explain what that is? What's learning design and what kind of innovation are you coordinating?
Oh, yes. So we, our departments used to be pretty siloed. So we used to have a kind of a curricular department and a technology department and an assessment department and a library department. They used to be very different. And 3 years ago, we really started talking about efficiencies that could be happening, but also collaboration that needs to happen. Because again, like when we talk about instructional tools, it used to be very clear what was a database and what was, a math tool. Well, over time, a lot of those things have really become interwoven. Our databases for online books are supplemental materials in our reading curriculum. And though those things are just merging a little bit more. And so in response to that, we smushed all those departments together to create the Learning Design and Innovation team. And in doing so, we've have different portfolios that we hold within there, but the goal is to really increase communication throughout those departments. So thinking about when we're talking about a new tool or a research technique that we want to do, how are we working with ELA and the instructional coaches and the principals, and who's connecting on all of those different things to bring pathways in there for that information. The other thing that kind of elevated at the same time as that is our guiding coalition. So instead of having, in the past, we would have like a lead math person who just knew everything that was about math curricularly, and they would just have all of the answers with math and build out the programs and the materials or maybe the resources. And we really found that one, that's not sustainable because when that person leaves, there's all of our math understanding, but also it's always so much better when we build it within. And how long is somebody in a leadership role before they don't understand what's happening in the actual classroom? And so we've created guiding coalition teams that work together. So it's a group of fifth grade teachers that lead the work around all of the curriculum, and then we connect with them. And so it's really about empowering everyone that's in our team. And our library media specialists sit on all of those guiding coalitions. So we have representation on there so that they're able to, again, just like we do on the learning design and innovation team, we want to connect those curricular resources with our program. They're able to do that at their grade levels and in their buildings.
I like to say that libraries really serve as the center of the community, whatever community they serve, whether it's, a public library in a city or a town, or a school library in a school and academic, et cetera. And it sounds like the libraries are really central to the education. Is that unique to the Bismarck Public Schools? Is that pretty common in schools across North Dakota or across the country?
Well, I think something that's unique to North Dakota is that our school required, the Department of Instruction requires school librarians in schools, and that's not the case in every state. And so we do have, for the most part, I think we have a pretty good, certified librarians compared to other states. But I think depending on funding levels and staffing, there's definitely some differences from place to place. There's a lot of places around the nation that might have aides in library roles and in school libraries, and when that's the case, the level of collaboration or curriculum involvement might be a little bit less. And so I think that we're offering the same amount of support that other states would have, and that those curricular collaborations where that funding and staff exists. But we're definitely fortunate that we can continue to do that in North Dakota, and that libraries for the most part are seen and supported.
So if someone said to you, get your elevator speech ready, like you're going to run into someone brand new and you want them to know what your position, what your school libraries are all about, like what would you want their takeaway to be? What's the takeaway that you want listeners of this podcast to know about Bismarck Public School Library Media Program?
Well, I think one, to know that we're very collaborative and that we're there to support the curriculums. But often when I run into somebody maybe outside of education that hasn't been around for a while, some of the older stereotypes around libraries of, just being the keeper of books and shushing kids or chasing kids down the hallway for late books is like something that's very relevant in their brain. And you'll get questions like, oh, we have the internet, why do we need a librarian? Or, what, maybe some of those kind of older stereotypes. And in that case, my elevator pitch is always like, librarians have always been the information access experts, and in traditional times, that might have been how to use a card catalog and how to find the resource that you need. Now our information expertise is really needed in sifting through and knowing what information is relevant and valuable and accurate. And so those information experts are needed now more than ever, not because there's a lack of information, but because there's almost too much information in some cases. And so it's become even more important that we have school librarians helping us with that. I would also say resource-wise that there's a lot of educational technology resources that need to be vetted and taught students and teachers how to use. And in order to play with those and figure out what the best practices are, your classroom teacher just doesn't necessarily have time to dig into all of those resources and make connections to how that supports their curriculum. And so that additional support allows the teacher to differentiate and meet the needs of the students in the classrooms a little bit better because some time has been saved for them on the other side.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. I like to say, and it's not my phrase, but it's one that I love. Google will bring you a million answers and the librarian will bring you the right answer.
That's right.
And I think
right.
that's more true now than it ever has been. And you're right. Libraries today are about so much more than books. They're about libraries of things, non-traditional materials that we circulate, like fishing poles or cake pans or STEM kits or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Programming is such an important element of libraries, but books will always be part of libraries. And so I always like to wrap up a podcast interview by asking whoever I'm talking with to share. I'm not going to say the best book you've read this year, or what you can share what you're reading right now if you want, but if you have a book that you just love and you would love for people to be aware of, what is it?
Oh gosh, I've really been into my murder mysteries lately as coming off the holiday with my lighter reading. I've got these two that I was just going to give to post today. So I read these just this weekend. They're more young adult, but we have Louder the Conquered. If you read the John Shu one, Standing Out. So this one, I think this one touches me in kind of going back to like my passion for kids that are at risk and going through some things. So this really kind of talks about his experience and what we can do for students there. And then I did.
Is that a nonfiction book then?
Yes. Well, I think it's based on loosely based, but it sounds like there's some names and situations that have been changed in there, but it's really about John Shu's struggle with an eating disorder when he was a child and his experience in some the institutions that were kind of an
so kind of autobiographical in some ways.
But it sounds like there were some things that maybe were changed up in it. But thinking about the internal struggles that you may not see of our students, and how to best meet those in there. So that was it, and it's a book written in verse, which is really interesting as well. So and it makes me feel like I read a lot more, right? Because we're
How about a murder mystery? Can you recommend a murder mystery?
Oh gosh, I just finished that Pines one. Oh, I'm gonna have to pull up my book things here. The over the break I read that one was I like a book that has a really good like twist in it. The House in the Pines, Van Race. Have you read that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one's pretty good. And I finished The Silent Patient this weekend as well, which was really good if you've read that one. But yeah, I think I'm always have a print book and an ebook and an audio book for whatever setting that I'm in. And then I've got one I'm reading with my son. And so there's always something going on around there.
Yeah, and I've become a heavy audiobook reader. Actually, and then I read ebooks. I find I don't read physical books quite as much just because it's one more thing to try and fit in my bag when I'm hearing all of the other various and sundry things that we carry in the world today. But I also have multiple books usually going at any one time, and I love a cozy mystery. So someone dies, but it's not bloody and gory. It kind of happens, like the one I'm reading right now. Someone fell down the stairs. It's a cozy mystery, but there's a twist at the end. I really didn't see the whodunit. I did not expect the person who done it to be the one who done it. So I love that. I don't know if you've ever read Harlan Coben. Harlan Coben is one of my favorite authors. HarlanCoben. And I like him because his are the same. There's always a twist at the end. The very first book I read by him, and I remember this, I can tell you, Misty, I read this book 20 plus years ago, probably. At the time, it was an orange book. And there was someone running like on the cover and she was fuzzy. And the premise of that book is a man gets an email from his wife that says, tell no one. And then in the email, she like runs off the screen. The only problem is his wife is deceased.
Oh, gee.
So who sent him the email? Why did they send it? That one is really good. Another really good one by him it's called No Second Chance. And that one is about a gal who's serving in the military. And while she's in serving over, I can't remember if it's Iraq, but overseas,
Yeah.
her sister gets killed. And so she comes back and she's trying to figure out that piece of it. And then her husband gets killed. And so, and I will tell you that one, I did not see it coming. Did not. In a different genre or a different type of book, probably one of the books that has surprised me the most and that I've seen impact people the most is a book by Jodi Picoult. Have you ever read Jodi's books?
I'm a Jodi Picoult fan for sure.
My sister's keeper.
Picoult. Picoult is how she pronounced it.
Picoult. Okay. My sister's keeper. I don't know if you read that one or not, but I still remember we had a patron come in one time. This was when I was a library director in Illinois. And she was a former staff member, but she walked in and she like kind of tossed the book at the desk. And she was visibly upset. And we thought something personally had happened. Like someone had passed away, someone had been hurt. And she's like, that book. I'm like, what about that book? She goes, you haven't read that book if you're asking that question. It's like, okay. So I was talking with one of my staff members later on about it. And she's like, you haven't read it? You read it and you tell me. And so, of course, I checked it out and I read it. And I walked into work a couple of days later and she looked at me and she goes, hey, you read the book. Because she could just tell from like, it's almost a physical response. That's one of my favorite books, but it definitely is an emotional one for sure.
Yeah.
If you're someone who likes to describe books with ethical conundrums, that one definitely has it. But
a lot of her books have those ethical kind of pieces in it. I feel like that Frida McFadden right now too has I don't know if you've read any of hers, but she's got, they always have a wicked twist and there's always an ethical or a kind of a character that you're not so sure about. The one that I am finding in my like kind of personal circle, that's that same throw the book at you as the teacher by Frida McFadden, because it has such an ending, especially for an educator, where you're like, what just happened? Can that have, so there's always those that become fun too.
Oh yeah. I like books that make you think like that. Don't get me wrong. I love a cozy mystery and I love a cozy romance, but I also love those books that are a little deeper, take you in a little more, really connect you more to the characters and make you want to have a conversation with someone about them. So, Misty, anything else you want to share with us about your life as a school librarian or your school in particular?
Well, I think that one, we're pretty lucky that we're in North Dakota and working in our schools. I think that, there is a lot of innovation that happens around North Dakota that other states don't. I feel like especially when I travel and I get to go to other places and visit with other school librarians, I come back just being so grateful for the opportunities that we have. At the same time, there's this push to always keep learning. And I feel like when we get into a place in libraries where we're fighting for what used to be or what should have been, we end up digging into a hole where we end up not being as responsive as our community needs us to be. So it's this constant grateful and also reflective circle that I think that keeps us going.
Oh, yeah. What a wonderful thought to conclude our conversation. Well, Misty, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. I feel like I've learned so much more about school libraries just in the short time that we've talked. I've written down a couple of books I want to read, which is always You know, as librarians, we tend to geek out about those
Oh,
stories
yeah.
when we hear about them. So thank you to everyone who listened today, and I look forward to our next conversation on Pathways Through the Prairie. The state library has 10 book vending machines located throughout the state of North Dakota, filled with bestsellers and children's books for state library cardholders to check out. The books can also be returned to the machine. These mini libraries can be found in Carson, Hillsborough, Bowbells, Fort Ransom, McCluskey, Towner, Center, Fort Yates, Amadon, and at the State Capitol building in Bismarck. All you need is a library card from the State Library. Sign up today on our website at www.library.nd.gov.